Appearance on Dion's Daily Dose does not imply endorsement from or by any candidate or guest. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed by Dion Bergeron or Dion's Daily Dose are his own and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of any guest. Material and information presented is for general information purposes only. The Dion's Daily Dose name in all forms and abbreviations are the property of its owners, and its use does not imply endorsement of or opposition to any specific organization, product, or service. If you'd like to support the show, please visit our Patreon at patreon.com/Dion's Daily Dose.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Dion's Daily Dose. Today we have a special guest. We have Donald Rainwater, who, as you should know, is running for the governor of Indiana. He is a Libertarian. As probably many of you know, I have a number of supporters that are Libertarians. They have requested that I have Mr. Rainwater on the show, and I think it's a good opportunity to hear what he has to say. I appreciate everybody coming out. Hello. We're going to bring him on in just one quick moment, but I'm going to put his information up here first. His website is rainwaterforindiana.com. His Facebook is @Rainwater, the number 4 Indiana, and his Twitter is @Rainwater4IN. Not everyone is as lucky as me to where they get all the exact same social media stuff at Dion for Congress, right? I really got lucky on that. So there you go. Jot that information down so you don't miss it if you want to learn more about Mr. Rainwater. And without further ado, we're going to bring him on.
Good evening, Dion. How are you?
I am great. I thank you very much for coming.
Well, thank you for having me.
So I have a few questions for you. First of all, I'm going to give you the opportunity to tell everyone about yourself. Obviously, you're the Libertarian candidate for Indiana's governor, but what about you, the person?
Okay. Well, first of all, I'm a lifelong Hoosier. I was born here in Indianapolis back in the last millennium, back in 1963. Grew up on the east side of town, graduated from Warren Central High School in 1981. Went to a semester of college. My father is a retiree of Ford Motor Company. He worked at the plant on English Avenue on the southeast side of Indianapolis for about 41 years. Oh, wow. So I got a steady dose of union in one ear and got a steady dose of church in the other ear. So I do have what I consider to be a well-rounded view of the world. After my one semester of college, I chose to enlist in the United States Navy. I was in the Navy for 8 years as a yeoman. Got out of the Navy, got into teaching computer classes in vocational colleges, managed some small businesses. I managed for other owners, managed a small residential property, managed a rent-to-own store, and decided I wasn't really a big fan of doing the retail management gigs. So I got back into teaching computer classes, then got the opportunity to get into actually software development, software engineering. Have been doing that for about the last 20 years, the last 7 or 8 as a manager.
Oh, okay. That's actually really cool. Thank you for your service. We appreciate it. So have you ever run for any office before?
I have. I got very, I'll say, dissatisfied with what I saw going on in the state of Indiana in 2016, and decided that I was going to get my butt up off the couch. I was really frustrated by the fact that I had grown up believing in the small government, lower taxes, fiscal responsibility message that I had always heard from the Republican Party. But what I heard and then what I saw going on down at the General Assembly, and in the governor's office didn't seem to mesh. It really frustrated me. I got to the point where when they started talking about raising the cigarette tax and raising the gasoline taxes, and I just, I'm tired of complaining. I'm going to get up and do something. So I knew I couldn't run as a Republican because I was frustrated with Republicans. Okay. And I'm sure one of the reasons you're probably running for office is because you feel like there's something that needs to happen that isn't happening. And so you want to get involved. And so I decided I was going to look around and find a small government, constitutionally based party that believed in individual rights and lower taxes and less spending and less debt. And what I found was the Libertarian Party. So I went to a meeting. They just happened to be having their annual county convention, told them that I wanted to run for office, that I was fed up with what was going on down at the General Assembly. And I actually ended up running for state senate against Luke Kinley, who was basically the author of the state budget for many years. But I ran for state senate in a three-way race, got about 4% of the vote, which is standard for a libertarian in that type of situation. 2 years later, I ran for state representative. Okay. And then I was encouraged by both people in my hometown here of Westfield, Indiana, and some folks in the Libertarian Party to look into what was going on here in Westfield. And they were right. It upset me. And so I was going to run for city council. However, in the Republican primary, the counselor in my district was beaten by somebody that I really liked. I thought he was a good candidate and would do a good job. So I decided to back out and was approached by several people in the city of Westfield. Nobody's running against the mayor, and we need to get the mayor out of there. So I ran for mayor, and I was able to get almost 40% in a heavily Republican city in Hamilton County, which is an extremely Republican county.
Very right.
I was able to get 40% of the vote in a two-way race. And the reason for that, I believe, was because people were fed up. I hope I don't offend anybody by saying this, but I think people were fed up with the rhinos. Yeah. They're tired of people who say they're a Republican, but then they govern as a Democrat. Right. And they spend, and they borrow, and they tax, and they spend, and they borrow, and they tax. And I think people are tired of that in Indiana. I think folks are tired of being sold a bill of goods by politicians who say they're for smaller government. And, I think Ronald Reagan made a very good point when he said you can't be for big government, big taxes, big debt, and say you're for the little guy.
Right.
So I decided that it was time to take aim at somebody else who I believe says he's one thing, but governs in a different way. So now I'm running for governor.
Okay. All right. So let me ask you, I was going to ask you something else. You answered it actually. So what made you want to run for governor? But what does the Libertarian Party represent to you?
So what I've told people and what I really believe is the most appropriate way to phrase it, is between Thomas Jefferson in the Declaration of Independence and James Madison in the Bill of Rights. And then in our 14th Amendment, we talk about securing the rights of life, liberty, property, and the pursuit of happiness. And I always add on to the end of that, as defined by you, not the government. So I think that's one of the things that we really need to stop and think about today, is that, the libertarian message, whether you're a big L, part of the Libertarian Party, or a little L, like a guy like Thomas Massey or Rand Paul, who are working to promote the libertarian philosophy within the Republican Party. Either way, the reality is that what we want is that government of the people, by the people, for the people. We want a constitutionally sound government, which means we want a small government. And as Jefferson put it in the Declaration of Independence, to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men.
Right.
The purpose of government to secure your individual rights and nothing else. So to me, that really encapsulates it. It's the maximum freedom, minimum government.
Okay. But I think a lot of people can really resonate with that message, especially given the current circumstances. I actually had a kind of a little more straight to the point. What makes you more qualified to be governor, or what would make you a better governor than our current incumbent Governor Eric Holcomb?
Okay, so first of all, let me deal with the way you started to phrase that. What makes me more qualified?
Okay.
What makes me more qualified to be governor is I don't think I'm qualified to rule over you.
Okay.
What makes me more qualified to be governor is I want to secure your individual rights and not take them from you in the name of a little safety. Because as Ben Franklin said, if you're, anyone willing to give up essential liberty for a little safety, we'll end up with neither safety or liberty. And so I think it's very important that, the Constitution of the state of Indiana says to be governor, to be qualified to be governor, you need to be a resident for 5 years. And I've been a resident for legitimately almost 57 years now.
Okay.
And you need to be over the age of 30. Well, here again, I'm almost double that. So I meet the constitutional requirements to be governor. And the question that voters have to ask is, are you a citizen or are you a subject? And if you're a subject, then I'm not qualified to be your governor. If you're a citizen and you believe in self-rule and self-government, and you believe that the purpose of government is to protect your individual rights, then I'm more qualified than he is, because he thinks that you are a servant.
A subject, right?
Yeah.
I can agree with almost all of what you're saying there, because we're seeing liberties being just tossed out the window. That's kind of what brought this on is there's this general consensus, I believe, that the Libertarian Party, I won't say isn't a real party, but because obviously they are, but that a governor, for example, we haven't had a Libertarian governor yet. We haven't had, at least in Indiana, we haven't had a U.S. congressman from Indiana win Libertarian or win as running as a Libertarian. But so before that, before the lockdowns and all that stuff, I kind of would have said, okay, it's good to have a discussion. But I have heard from a large number of people that seeing Holcomb's response to this and the methods that he employed and the measures that he went to, it's drawn a lot of people to a Libertarian's campaign. Someone like you who believes, hey, more hands off, right? Take a step back and let people figure it out for themselves. Would you say that you've seen a lot more people post Wuhan?
Yes, I think there are a lot of people who this, for a lack of a better way of saying it, kind of jerked them into the reality that they have been systematically and slowly denied of their rights over a long period of time. And when we go back to the discussion, just to kind of circle back to the whole, we've never had a Libertarian governor in Indiana.
Right.
I always like to remind people that we had never had a Republican president before Lincoln.
That's right.
So, the first time is going to happen eventually.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's not because we all hear but if I vote for a Libertarian, it's throwing away my vote. And I always tell people, look, first of all, it's your vote. And the only way you waste your vote is to either not cast it. People who say, well, I just won't vote. Well, by all means, find somebody that embodies what you believe in and vote for them if you can. Because the reality is the only truly wasted vote is the one that you cast for somebody who is going to tell you one thing to get your vote and then who's going to do just the opposite once they've been elected.
Right, and we see those all over. I'm glad you brought up the wasted vote theory, because when I kind of posted that I was going to have you on, one of the people made some negative comments about Libertarians. One of the Libertarian people that kind of follow me and replied, I know a lot of Libertarians and they're all good people. And they said, well, their behavior in the Kentucky governor's race was shameful. I don't know about all that, but what I do know is had there not been a Libertarian candidate, more than likely the Republican incumbent would have won re-election. That seems to be the general consensus on that.
Okay.
So what's your take on that? Do you think that by having a third-party candidate that doesn't win, do you think it causes a negative connotation or result?
Well, here, let me, and I'm going to say this tongue in cheek.
Okay.
But it's going to be my belief of that philosophy. I believe that when a third-party candidate gets votes but does not win, then the problem is not enough people voted for the third-party candidate. They threw their vote away on somebody who probably didn't deserve their vote. Okay. I told somebody the other day, because somebody here again was saying, well, a vote for you is just a vote for the Democrats. And I go, well, you know what? All the people who are who would normally vote Democrat because there's no Libertarian in the race would totally disagree with you. They would tell me that my existence keeps the Democrat from getting elected because I'm pulling votes from the Democrat. And the truth is that our base, the Libertarian base, there's a significant number of those folks who will not vote. if there's no Libertarian in the race, because they don't want to vote for a Republican or a Democrat, because they know that in many cases today, the Republican or the Democrat is financially backed by special interests and big corporations, and they don't govern for the people. They govern for the people who paid to get them there. And so I always try to tell people, I don't care whether you vote for a Republican, a Democrat, a Libertarian, an Independent, vote for somebody that you believe that you can trust, who will do what they say they're going to do. And the easiest way to find that person is find somebody who's having trouble raising money.
Right.
Because if you look at our incumbent governor, he's got about $8 million right now in his campaign fund, which means that people have paid a lot of money for him to do what they expect for him to do.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I will agree with that. We see all too often, it doesn't, in many cases, not every time, but in many, many cases, it doesn't matter whether you vote left or vote right. You're voting for the people behind face that name anyway.
That's right.
So it doesn't really matter.
You're voting for big government. And
Right.
I tell people that now. Eric Holcomb and Woody Myers are the same guy. They're the same guy. They're going to raise your taxes. They're going to spend more money. They're going to increase the debt. They're going to, they're going to reduce your personal freedoms. That's all there is to it. The only person who doesn't present a big government platform is the Libertarian guy.
Okay, great. So let me ask you this. Let's say that you were governor when the virus came over and, Trump got on TV and he's talking about, okay, we got to shut down this. I'm going to let the governors do their thing. What would you have done differently?
Well, first of all, I would have come on television and told people that because this is a national health issue, that I'm going to shut my mouth, get out of the way, and let the health professionals explain to you what the situation is and what your options are for you to protect yourself, your family, and your business during this medical emergency. And I would have trusted the citizens of the state of Indiana to do what is right. There was a tweet here just in the last 24 hours or so, quoting the fact that the governor is encouraged, that Hoosiers seem to be doing the right thing. Well, if you had trusted them to do the right thing 2 months ago, I think we would have been in a very similar place to where we are today. But we wouldn't have the economic crisis on top of it, because people would have been able to protect themselves and make their own choices instead of having government dictate to them in a way that caused what we are very close, if not over 15% unemployment here in the state of Indiana right now. And regardless of what people say on television, not all of those jobs are going to come back.
Right.
And I think that that is a much more important crisis that we're not hearing a plan. What's the plan for getting people back into an economic stability that they had before our government decided to just trash that?
Right. And that's what we're hearing, at least I am, from a lot of people is, They may not have been 100% with Holcomb on some things. There was the immigration issue where we were getting refugees in. A lot of people were unhappy about that. There were some other issues, but then with the lockdown, a lot of staunch conservative Republicans that are like, okay, this is the last straw. He's gone too far. I'm looking for someone else. We got, some people in the comments that are of the same ilk. We'll just so you know, everyone, we will get to your comments and questions. But before we get to that, though, I do have a question for you. One of the big things that's going on right now is with the convention coming up. They're talking about having it virtually and all that stuff, but they're
talking about the Libertarian Party National Convention.
Yeah, well, the Republican one. Yeah, the Republican convention.
Yeah,
because currently we have a Republican Attorney General,
right.
Mr. Curtis Hill. Now, recently his law license was suspended. There was talk of it, but it actually came down, and yes, it's happening. First of all, back before all the official stuff, the rumors started, and there was an investigation. At any point, would you have asked for Attorney General Hill to resign?
Not unless I asked Brian Bosma to resign at the same time. The first thing that I see, first of all, no, I would not.
Okay.
In my opinion, it is not the governor's place. The governor is a statewide elected official. Mm-hmm. So is the Attorney General. Mm-hmm. The Attorney General does not report to the governor. The Attorney General reports to the people. Now, one of the problems that we have in Indiana is we don't have any real recall mechanism, which I think is something that we need. But no, okay. I don't believe that it is the governor's place, because I think, I don't know whether you saw today, but the governor has petitioned the Supreme Court to let him appoint a replacement for Curtis Hill.
Oh, now, I missed that.
That was just today. It was in the Indianapolis Business Journal.
Okay.
And so to me, it first of all, it's disingenuous to call for the resignation of a man who basically had a little too much to drink and did something that was not really acceptable, compared to a politician who evidently was having an inappropriate relationship on the grounds of the State House. And so you ask for one's resignation, the other one, you quietly let him retire and not run for re-election. Right. I just find that to smack of sour grapes for some reason.
Yeah. And look, I'm not an insider. I'm just a guy, trying to make a difference.
Right.
But one thing I've seen over and over is, if you're in the party's good graces, if you're one that they want to put up there, then you're going to get the kind of thing that you were talking about, where you can quietly just step aside. Mm-hmm. But we've seen, at least
I believe they call that the establishment, right?
Right.
If you're in the establishment, you can get away with just about anything.
Yeah.
And if you're not in the establishment, you better watch out.
Yeah, and that was my next point. Is we all know Holcomb is the establishment for Indiana. He's very much a part of it. That's just the way it is. Whereas Curtis Hill has always been viewed as kind of outside the establishment. And there's many people that have said from the beginning the governor was out to get A.G. Hill.
I've heard that a lot, yes.
Yeah. While I don't have any smoking gun I can hold up and go, yes, here it is.
Other than the fact that the day after, it just seems very odd that the day after Curtis Hill is suspended, and the Supreme Court was very clear that they were suspending his license for a month, and that it was automatically being reinstated after that month.
Right.
So for the governor to jump on the chance, let me jump out there and see if I can get him, if I can appoint somebody else while he's not able to, and now he's no, it's just they're really trying to get rid of him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And to me, I'll be very honest. To
Please.
me, it's the same kind of thing as what they did to Jennifer McCormick and the office of State Superintendent of Public Instruction. Why does the governor want to take your vote away from you so that he can appoint people to these offices? That to me shows that he wants more power. Now, I love Tim Allen. And when Tim Allen talks about, I rewired it, that's funny. But when the governor of the state of Indiana starts rewiring who gets elected and who he can appoint so that he can have more power and take your voice away from you as a voter, I find that wholly unacceptable.
I agree with you there. Absolutely. Our voice should be heard. And anytime there's a movement, a method to sidestep the people's voice, I find that very, very concerning.
Yep.
So, got a couple of questions from the viewers. So Stephen Roknick says he's sick of Holcomb and the Democratic candidate. He's going to try to voting for someone else, a third party, but he does want to know. I saw it here. Where did it go? Oh, he would like to know what you think of President Donald Trump.
Well, I think that President Trump has done some good things. And I think that he's done some things that I don't necessarily love. I'm not a big fan of his Twitter exploits. I understand what he's doing, why he's doing it. Don't always like the method with which he does it. I believe that he is doing as good a job as anyone has done over, let's say, the last 12 to 15 years.
Okay.
I am not particularly thrilled with everything that he does. But then again, I'm not thrilled with everything that anybody does. I try to stay objective and not become on anybody's bandwagon, because we're all human and we all make mistakes. And we're all going to do things either through lack of sufficient information or in a moment of frustration that we may later go, boy, I wish I hadn't done that.
Right.
We've all done that.
Okay. Yeah, I can get with that.
I will tell you that I would much rather have, if the only options I have are President Trump or any of the people the Democrats have put up, I'm going with President Trump, because here again, at least I know that he is focused on trying to reduce the fiscal responsibility that he pulls out of my pocket.
Okay, I can understand that. So I just want to go on record. I've said before that I may not agree with everything that Trump has done or said. Specifically for me, it revolves around the Second Amendment and him kind of backing off and allowing certain bans and things like that.
Sure.
And I may not agree with everything that he puts out there, but I will say definitively that I'm glad that we have someone like him who does talk directly to the American people, even if the voice sometimes is a little louder, a little more screechy than we might desire at the time. But so Tom, wants to know, what do you think of the education issues in Indiana, and what would you do to fix them?
And that's a
I know
really
it's a
big
big one,
bucket.
right? Yeah.
So, but I know Tom. Tom's a great guy, so I will answer this in this way. First of all, I believe that education should be local, and by that I mean we need to get back to the day when the school board, the school administration, the parent-teacher organization was the foundation and the central point of education in Indiana. I'm old enough that I graduated high school in 1981. So the majority of my education took place before President Carter ever created the Federal Department of Education.
Okay.
And so I don't believe in one-size-fits-all education. I don't believe in statewide standardized testing. Personally, I would like to see us do away with iLearn. I think it has been a terrible waste of money. For the last 2 years, we haven't even used the scores. This year, we didn't even give the test. But $15 million a year gets paid to a vendor for that testing.
Yeah.
I would like to see that back localized the way it was when I went to school, because here again, I think it's more important that we educate our children than we fight with the teachers union. And I feel like that a lot of the things that we spend money on in education here in Indiana are either to appease the union or to pick a fight with it. And I don't think that's healthy, because here again, that's big government trying to wield its sledgehammer. And I don't think that statewide big government needs to run education. I think it needs to be local. I think parents need to have more of a voice.
Okay, great. Let's see. Chris Wells wants to know directly, would you be in favor of eliminating the federal
Abso-freaking-lutely.
Okay.
Hallelujah. Right. Yes, please. And here again, I think we need to simplify. You know, we've got a state board of education here in Indiana. Then we have a state department of education here in Indiana. Mm-hmm. And now, of course, you know, the governor is going to be appointing the superintendent, the state superintendent of education. There's too many. I at one point a couple of years ago went to the Indiana DOE website, mm-hmm. and I believe out of like 175 listed employees of the department, I think if I remember correctly, 30% of them are attorneys.
Yeah.
Why are we paying so many attorneys and not paying teachers? And here again, I know that a lot of people are frustrated with the whole conversation, but the reality is 60% of our state budget is for education, but a very small percentage of that is getting into the classroom, and it's right. Getting to your kids and getting to the teachers where it really needs to go. And I believe that whether you could call yourself a conservative or if you just say, I'm a Republican or however you characterize yourself, I believe we all share the fact that we all realize that the most important natural resource in the state of Indiana is our children. And that if we don't properly educate them, which is to mean, treat them like the individuals and that have unique needs and unique interests, and be able to provide them, whether it be charter schools or homeschooling or whatever if we can't give our children the best possible options in order for them to succeed, then we've failed. It doesn't matter how much money we throw at it.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly that there's definitely something wrong with our education system as it is right now. We need to take a clear, hard look at what we're doing, the money that we're pouring into it. If money fixed it, we'd be golden right now. We spend a
Well, if money
ridiculous amount
fixed
of money.
anything, government would be God.
Right.
But government
Right.
isn't God because money doesn't fix things.
Right. Right. I agree. So what do you think? First of all, it sounds like you're in favor of school choice. Would that be?
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. So let's see here. Dave Irons has, I think, a really good question. How could, let's say you won, how could a third party governor get a partisan assembly to work with them? Because we know that the Republicans have a super majority. You know, they'd be salty
Sure.
if you
Yeah,
won.
but let's be honest. If you know who Jim Lucas is, Jim Lucas is a Republican, but he can't get anybody down there to work with him because Jim Lucas is a little L libertarian. Jim Lucas believes in smaller government, lower taxes, and when he tries to go in and get something done, he gets stonewalled by the establishment.
Mm-hmm.
So I really honestly believe that there is a core group of people in the Indiana General Assembly, Republican, Democrat, doesn't matter. In their mind and in their heart, they want to do what's best for the citizens of the state of Indiana.
Yep.
They are not chained to their party's do as we say or you're out of here mentality, either party. And they believe that they're there to do the right thing for the right reasons. And I believe that a libertarian governor could sit down with those people and start to forge a path forward. And I believe that there are enough of them down there that if the reality was we're going to do the right thing for citizens, we're going to secure the rights of the individual, and we're going to stop playing the lobbyist game, because no lobbyists are going to give me any money. That's just,
I know the feeling. Yeah. I know the feeling. Believe me.
Right. So
yeah.
I believe that there are enough people down there that we can start putting coalitions together. Here's something we want to get done, and here are the people from both sides of the aisle that agree on this. And we start doing things that make sense for the citizens of Indiana.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I think anything is possible. I believe that very, very strongly. That's why I'm running for Congress instead of just, allowing a political elite to get it yet again. But Stephen from earlier has another question, and Kenneth would like to know as well. Do you believe in border security?
I do.
It's a libertarian thing. So,
well, and here's the thing: there are a lot of libertarians who support. First of all, let me clear away some of the chaff here.
Okay.
There's semantics and there's facts.
Okay.
So I'm not going to talk in semantics. The reality is that we have to be able to protect ourselves. That is what border security is. We have to make sure that we can defend ourselves against any aggression that might come our way. Now, that means that we need to have a certain set of rules.
Okay.
The extent of those rules is open for discussion and debate. But I have absolutely no qualms about saying that, I put a lock on my door, not because I don't want you to come over and have a cup of coffee or a beer with me.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't want you doing it at 3 o'clock in the morning while I'm in bed.
Right. I like that. I like that. That's it makes a lot of sense. So Kenneth wants to know what your take is on prostitution, because that's another thing that the Libertarian Party has kind of caught some flack on. You should be able to pretty much do whatever you want, and some, especially hard conservatives, are like, oh no, we don't want to talk about that. So,
well, first of all, as governor of the state of Indiana, that particular issue will probably not cross my desk. And since I don't believe that the governor should be issuing executive orders in lieu of legislation that the General Assembly should be passing, I don't think you ever have to worry about me personally as governor making prostitution legal. I will tell you that in my opinion, that first of all, when you attach prostitution and human trafficking, here again, what you're doing is you're saying that this always leads to this. And while there is a connectivity between the two, one does not always lead to the other. What causes one to lead to the other is prohibition. And one of the things that we know from history in our nation is that anytime you prohibit something, you drive it underground, and it normally creates criminal activity that would not exist if you didn't drive it underground. So I will say from a higher level, my take on anything that the government prohibits, you have to understand that if we really honestly believe in a liberty society where we secure the rights of the individual, if two people willingly engage in a transaction, the government should not be the third party, period. Now, that is not a moral discussion. It's not a religious discussion, because people are going to disagree on morality. People are going to disagree on religion. And the First Amendment secures your right to your opinion. Mm-hmm. But I think it's very important that we establish, whether it be the war on drugs, whether it be the prohibition of alcohol in the 20s and 30s, whether it be anything, the prohibition of alcohol on Sunday in the state of Indiana for many years.
Yeah.
The reality is that prohibition creates more crime than it prevents.
Okay. Do you realize, though, that there is a very serious human trafficking problem?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And here again, there's also a serious opioid epidemic.
Absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned that.
The reality is that we have not passed laws to outlaw narcotics and tell Big Pharma to stop doing it.
Mm-hmm. Right. So that actually brings the next question. This is actually Mike Strauss,
mm-hmm.
who is running for those of you who didn't catch the interview, he is running for 1st District as Libertarian candidate. He would like to know, if elected as governor, what do you plan, I assume he means you, what do you plan to do for cannabis reform? Also, what are your plans for increasing private property protections?
Okay. So those are two totally different questions. but they do kind of overlap in a way. So let's take cannabis reform first. And here again, I've already made it clear, I believe, that the opioid crisis is something that I think we have not properly addressed.
Hear, hear. I agree
And I also
wholeheartedly with
believe
that.
it's something that our current government, through the prohibition, first of all, of cannabis, and secondly, through the legislative monopolization of the pharmaceutical industry, has propped up. Because we have created a scenario where people, whether they have physical pain, psychological pain, emotional pain, whether it be through a medical issue, PTSD, they have a limited number of options for pain management.
Yeah.
And so, first of all, I believe that here in the state of Indiana, we should both decriminalize cannabis, which means that you no longer make it a criminal offense, which would also include expunging the records of people who have been convicted of non-violent cannabis offenses.
Okay.
Now, if you hold up a gas station so you can get some money to buy a dime bag, you're going to stay in jail and you're going to keep your conviction because you did something violent.
Right.
But first we need to decriminalize it, then we need to legalize it. Because the reality is that if highly addictive opioids are legal for doctors to prescribe, and highly addictive whiskey is legal for me to go buy at Kroger, I know because I've got some in the cabinet,
Mm-hmm.
then I believe that cannabis should be available in the same way that alcohol, tobacco, and prescription medication are
Okay.
available.
So
Yeah.
regulated.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
You have
Okay.
to have minimum regulations. Again, now I think we have too many regulations on a lot of things. But yes, there should be some regulation. I don't agree with the regulation that creates monopolies and barriers to entry for people who want to get into small business. But I do believe we need minimum regulations on, things that people can, for example, we don't want people creating something that is harmful to other people. We don't want bad product. That's why we have certain regulations about the quality of food and things. And here again, I think some of those go over the line a little bit. But as far as, yes, we need common sense regulation. And then as far as increasing private property protections, I think the first place we can do that is eliminating asset forfeiture. And the place that I would really like to start is on your primary residence.
Okay.
And the way that we eliminate asset forfeiture of your primary residence is we eliminate the personal property tax in this state on your primary residence. So you would not, if I were governor and I were able to get enough of the General Assembly to agree with me, we would eliminate the personal property tax in the state of Indiana. That way, the government can't take your house because you didn't pay your property taxes because you wouldn't have any.
Okay. What about those who would question, how are you going to generate income? Property taxes are responsible for X% and blah, 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 blah. What's your quick answer for that?
Well, my quick answer is big government is morbidly obese.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. The state budget is out of control, and they keep digging in our pockets for more, like Billy Idol, and all they do is spend it, and they go into debt, and it's just more and more and more. And eventually we have to tell them enough's enough. Your job is to secure my individual rights. And if it doesn't involve that, we need to privatize it or do away with it. And people need to be able to keep more of their money in their pocket. You know, I was thinking about this earlier today. Governor Mitch Daniels sent us back a check when the state of Indiana collected more income tax than what it spent.
Right.
Governor Holcomb got on TV and bragged about the fact that they collected $410 million more than what they needed to spend, even though they were borrowing money to spend money.
Right.
And so then he bragged about the $2 billion rainy day surplus fund.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know what? There are a lot of Hoosiers out of work today, and it's raining on them, and they could use that money back. And the federal government, you know, President Trump and Congress saw fit to send people back some of the money they've put in last month. I haven't seen Governor Holcomb pony up. As a matter of fact, I know for a fact, I've heard from quite a large number of people that there are a lot of Hoosiers out here that have filed for unemployment and still aren't getting it. And that is wholly unacceptable.
Yeah, I agree with you right there. I have seen the governor get on television, and I have seen him talk about, you know, testing this and, you know, the steps to getting back to normal and all that stuff. I have yet to see him say, I am working on your unemployment. I understand that you don't, you know, you're hurting right now. I don't see that as a priority for him.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
You're fine.
Say, you know, that's something else. Mitch Daniels, when he became governor, made it his mission to fix the inefficiencies at the Bureau of Motor Vehicles. And if you remember what it was like when you had to go to the BMV before Mitch Daniels was governor, you would sit there for hours and hours and hours waiting just to get told that you didn't have the right documents.
Right. As someone which
I would fix the Department of Workforce Development as governor of the state of Indiana.
I can agree with you on I'm not a huge fan of Daniels simply because all the other stuff that he did, and I agree that there is good that he did, including with the BMV. But I worked at Indiana State Prison when Daniels took office. He destroyed our unions. He ended up making us an at-will employer. He took away pretty much everything good about that job and lied straight-faced to my wife about it. I want to ask you directly, how do you feel about the privatization of our prison system here in Indiana, the food service and the medical services, and then in many cases the facilities themselves, before we get to our audience questions?
There are a lot of things that we need to privatize. In my opinion, the oversight and care of the incarcerated is not one of them.
Okay.
Because here again, what you're saying is this is something that is not a function of government. And one of the few things here again that should be a function of government is when someone violates your rights and they go in front of a jury of their peers and they are found guilty and they are sentenced to pay for that crime, Because, as libertarians, we talk all the time about, if there is no victim, there is no crime. Well, when there is a victim, there is a crime, and people should pay for that crime. And that is a government responsibility.
Okay.
So privatizing the prisons and making it a profit margin opportunity for somebody, to me, is actually doing something that shouldn't be done.
Okay.
And we need to reverse that.
Okay, good. When you mentioned privatization a little bit ago, I was like, oh, I got to make sure to ask him this because I personally witnessed the effect of privatization on the Indiana Department of Corrections. I worked at Indiana State Prison, maximum security prison here in Michigan City, and I saw the food service trying to feed food to these people that I wouldn't feed to a dog.
Right.
It was absolutely horrible, absolutely atrocious, and I've heard, and that's just what I personally witnessed. I have heard horror story after horror story that leads directly from the privatization, the health service, the food service, and then down it in other areas, the privatization of the facilities themselves. They couldn't do it at ISP because it has death row. They're not allowed to privatize that. So otherwise they had every intention of it. Irons wants to know what your first, let's say you win, we have a massive party, and what's your first month in office look like?
Well, I think my first month in office would very much entail going down to the General Assembly and finding out who's really there to do what is best for the individual citizens of the state of Indiana and who we're going to have to work around. And I think it will take some time to not only identify the people who want to do the right work, because here again, my thing is we've got to reduce the size and the scope of the state bureaucracy, because we can't eliminate the state individual income tax. 9 other states don't have an income tax, but we do. Mm-hmm. I think we should be number 10. But in order for us to eliminate the property tax on your, because you made the comment yourself, how are you going to pay for all this stuff? Well, the thing is we've got to start eliminating the stuff that needs to be paid for. We're spending a lot of money that we don't need to be spending. And so I think that we need to start right away in identifying who's going to work with us and who isn't. Then we have to start looking right inside. I tweeted here a couple of days ago, that the governor wanted to assess whether or not Curtis Hill should remain in office. And I said, well, I wish he would assess whether the 50 plus agencies within the state government are essential or not. You want to tell citizens your job's not essential. Well, hey, let's look at state agencies and start deciding who's essential, who's not. And here again, now, and I'll tell people right up front, I do not want to eliminate the job of anyone on the state payroll and leave them unemployed. We would find the right ways to reduce headcount without putting somebody out of work. And there are ways to do that. It'll probably take us several more hours to discuss it.
Right.
So we won't do that here.
Yeah.
But we've got to start reducing the size and scope of government so we can put more money back in Hoosiers' pockets.
Okay, I can get down with that. I do believe that many people across the country, across the state of Indiana in particular, are tired of seeing government wasting their money, not just federal but state. But next question, going back to cannabis, would you decriminalize it with taxation like the surrounding states, or would you simply decriminalize it recreationally without any state incentive to do so? Would you tax it, or would you just let it be free?
Well, I believe here again that what we would have to do is probably, in order to get it passed and get the legislature to buy in, we would probably need to have it so that it was not just decriminalized, but legalized, which would mean that we would probably end up, with a 7% sales tax on it, like everything else other than groceries.
Okay.
I want to fight really hard to eliminate as much taxation as possible and to work against any tax increases. But in order to get this done, you're probably going to need to fit it into an existing regulatory structure like tobacco and alcohol.
Okay. How do you feel about the Second Amendment? Are you going to stand up for the Second Amendment rights?
I have my lifetime carry permit here in Indiana, and it really frustrates me because, in my opinion, my Constitution is my lifetime carry permit. And I believe that the phrase "shall not be infringed" should be taken literally. And it doesn't say "shall not be infringed" except to make some people feel better. And I believe that the purpose of the Second Amendment is not for me to be able to protect myself against somebody trying to break into my house, or for me to have hunting equipment. I believe that the purpose of the Second Amendment is for me to be able to protect myself against a government run amok that has decided it's going to enslave me and the other citizens of this country. And therefore, I believe that if the police have it, I should be able to own it.
Okay.
If the military has it, and we joke about the fact that Don's going to have a Sherman tank sitting out in his driveway. The reality is the Second Amendment was designed to make sure that the citizens could protect themselves against the same tyrannical government that they were fighting to get away from.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. Good. I don't know if you know the question to this. Dave wants to know, didn't Mitch Daniels sell the toll road?
He did.
Privatized it. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think there were positives to that. I think there were negatives to that. And here again, I would need to sit down with all the data and figure out today, was that a good decision financially or a bad one?
Okay.
It's not as much what you privatize as to how you privatize it.
Okay.
Because there's privatization and then there's government welfare.
Right.
And
right.
I am not interested in providing government welfare for publicly held or private corporations.
Okay.
I do, on the other hand, want to create an environment in the state of Indiana where you, me, and all of our neighbors have the ability to start a business on their own without having to wring their hands and scratch their head about the paperwork and the tax liabilities of becoming an independent business owner.
Yes, because there are a lot. And I'm glad you brought up business because that was my next question to you. I noticed if you follow the news at all, Elon Musk right now is very, very angry with California. He's talking about moving his plant out of California, and he mentioned Texas, Nevada. But I actually believe that Northwest Indiana would be an even better solution for him than Texas, Nevada area. We obviously, Indiana, crossroads of America, multiple interstates converge right in Northwest Indiana. We have the steel mills, we have the lake for Port of Indiana shipping. We have so much right up here. Now, here's my question to you. Obviously, Republicans or Democrats are gonna say, "Hey, in order to draw them here, we're going to give them big tax breaks. We're going to give other incentives for him to move here." What do you think can be accomplished in order to pull something like Tesla, which would be a huge deal for Northwest Indiana, to the area without creating corporate welfare?
Well, that's a great question because it. One of the things that we've done to really uh, get us stuck in the mire are things like tax increment financing districts and 10-year tax abatements, where we're basically giving away the farm in order to lure a business into an area. Mm. And I like to equate that to offering a girl $100 to go on a date.
Okay.
Because the reality is once you give her the $100 and she goes on the date, as soon as the date's over, she's gone, and so's your $100.
Yeah.
And I believe that what we commonly refer to as incentives to bring jobs into Indiana is nothing more than offering a girl $100 to go on a date. Because the reality is that we're never going to recoup that investment. And okay. I believe that what we have to do is we have to create an environment in the state of Indiana where when people like Elon Musk say, "I'm fed up with California," mm-hmm. he looks around and he goes, "Oh man, Indiana looks good. I'm going to Indiana." And we don't have to, one of the things that really frustrates me, and I don't know how many of the folks watching right now are aware of this, but back in September, Governor Holcomb went to Beijing and Shanghai on an economic visit to try to bring Chinese business to Indiana.
Right.
Now, why in the world would I want communist-backed businesses investing in Indiana? I want Hoosiers investing in Indiana.
Yep.
I want to create an environment where I don't have to go and beg people to come here. I want people standing at the border of the state going, "We want to bring your business. We want to bring our business in here. Can we locate our headquarters in here? Can we put a new factory in here? This is a great place because people want to live here." And here again, if you eliminate the personal income tax in this state, people are going to want to move here. And if there are people here, there will be jobs come here for them, because that is a chicken or the egg conversation. No business wants to move somewhere where they're going to create jobs and not be able to fill them.
Right. So let's see here. There's one thing before I go back to that. I do want to bring up the fact that you said Governor Holcomb and China, that's interesting you should mention that because I don't know how many of the viewers know this, but there was a list that was published. Uh, are you familiar with it? Where a Chinese think tank actually rated all 50 governors, and Governor Holcomb was on the friendly list to China. He was ranked as I don't have the actual ranking, but there was hardline, which are not so much
Right.
friendly, which was 17 governors, including Eric Holcomb, Janet Mills from Maine, and Jared Polis from Colorado, and then unclear. That to me is probably more concerning than anything else when it comes to governors. I'm going to obviously, like always, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to drop the link in here so you can take a look. This is from Axios. But if you just put Chinese friendly governors in your browser, you can find this. It was a list that was released, and
How many of them were Democrat, or how many of them were Republicans other than him in the friendly list?
there was actually there weren't too many. Uh, the list itself, the whole list. Let me see if I can find it. Let's see here. It states. Let's see. Hold on. If we go back, Politico also has it. I believe it. That was when he. Uh, let's see here. Oh, Pompeo did warn them though that we know what you've been doing. Here it is, the U.S. Governor's report. Here's the actual document. It is in Chinese, so that doesn't really do us that much good. But there is a translated copy out there somewhere. I'm scrolling down through real quick because I know that somewhere on this list it shows friendliness. I'll have to look for it, ladies and gentlemen. All you have to do is put in translated one. But I just wanted to drop that out there so you could see, because it does relate to your comment about kind of what happened with Holcomb and working with Shanghai to get businesses in. I think that's kind of what they were talking about.
Right.
There we go. So Chris Wells would like to point out that tax abatements work. He, just so you know, Chris Wells is Hobart City Councilman, and he said we were giving an abatement to a company to bring their company to Hobart. What we abated was going to be recovered by the end of year 2, and they agreed to a 10-year deal where they were paying over $600,000 more in taxes than the empty land that they were going to then, utilize, and $600,000 a year, not total, but per year. What is your take on that?
Well, there are a couple of things there. First of all, I don't discount the fact that a tax abatement. First of all, I think we should give everybody a tax abatement. I'd like to just do away with taxes.
Okay, yeah, I could get with that.
But again, I think that what I see a lot of municipalities do is they'll give a tax abatement to a company to bring them in, yet companies that have been in town for 25, 30 years want to expand business and can't get a tax abatement from the city council. And I think that is unfortunate, because here again, if you structure them correctly, and if you make sure, now, here again, all of the tax abatements that I've seen, for example, on a 10-year abatement, the first year, you only pay 10% of the regular property tax, and the next year you pay 20, and the next year you pay 30, and the next year you pay 40. So I'm not sure how you would structure an abatement that would allow for the recouping of what you didn't get. I do understand the concept that obviously the improved property gets assessed at a higher rate. And so you're collecting taxes that you wouldn't have collected on the land if it were not developed. I understand that completely. But the money that you don't collect is money you just don't collect. And that's fine, except for the fact that here again, if that business after 10 years decides to go somewhere else where somebody else is going to give them a 10-year tax abatement, and they leave an empty building, and they leave unemployed people, and you have to start all over again, what did you really gain? Because normally, not only do you give a tax abatement, but in many cases, what municipalities end up doing is creating a tax increment financing district. And in order to build the building and pay for all of the infrastructure around the building so that the business coming in doesn't have any initial outlay. And so they have no skin in the game. They come in, they do their 10 years, and they leave. And I've been in Westfield City Council meetings where businesses were coming in asking for 10-year abatements who were leaving other municipalities because their abatement was almost up. Right. And to me, that's a problem.
I can understand that.
We need to manage that better.
Yeah, my question is, so especially with Elon Musk, right? Now, I will say that as it sits, to me, Indiana is probably the most pro-business Midwest state, especially offering all that Northwest Indiana does as far as the transportation hub.
And compared to Illinois, we look awesome.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, compared to Illinois, we are amazing. But do you believe? Because I've discussed it with several people. Let's just pick Michigan City as a for example, because we have a public transportation system. We're right on the lake, blah 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 blah, and it happens to be where I live, so that's why I'm mentioning Michigan City. But let's just say Tesla says, okay, I want to build in Michigan City. Is it worth having a discussion about offering incentives because of the revolutionary effect it would have on the economy? Michigan City has been dying for many, many years. The current the current mayor wants to make it into a tourist trap, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, we've got that here in Westfield. That's working out really well right now during the pandemic.
Right, exactly.
That's great.
Yeah. So that's kind of my question to you is, we're not only would we have the factory workers, we would have the high tech workers for the systems and everything that go into the Teslas. The batteries would have to come from somewhere. All the sources would have to come from somewhere. It would absolutely boost the economy to the stratosphere for this area especially, right? Would it be worth something like that? Or do you think that ultimately it would be too much of a risk with not enough reward?
Well, I don't want to sound like I'm kicking the can down the road, but I'm going to say this. You need to sit down and study that carefully to make sure, because the first thing that you don't want to do is tell the citizens of the state of Indiana, especially an economically challenged area, we're going to bring in a new manufacturing business and it's going to improve your economy. And then do it in a way that benefits the business coming in, but actually creates a series of unintended consequences for the citizens in the area, where their property taxes go up so much that they can't pay them anymore. One of the biggest lies in the state of Indiana is that we have a 1% capped property tax. We do not have a capped property tax. We have a 1% tax on the continually growing assessed value of your property. So we continue to get money out of you, and this is how a lot of these TIF districts work. We give away the ability for a business to come in and get stuff built for them that they can come in and inhabit. The taxpayers are told, well, what we're going to do is pay for this with bonds that'll be paid back with the difference in property taxes from what they are today to what they are in the future. Well, first of all, you're taking that money away from your schools.
Right.
In the way the current financing goes, that gets taken away from the schools. Secondly, in order for those tax increments to continue to grow so that that money can pay off that debt, you have to grow the value of everything around it too, which means that includes your house. And so now you have senior citizens who have paid off their home that they raised their kids in, and they retired, and they thought, you know what, this is our lifetime home. But no, we put a factory in down the street. We've got to raise the value of the property to pay the debt on the factory we built. So now we're going to make your house, the property taxes on your house go up enough to cover that, and you're not going to be able to afford them because you're on a fixed income. And we don't really care that you your kids were born there, grew up there, graduated high school there, your whole life is in this house. We don't care because we wanted that business down the street. And I think that that's a problem. Now, can we find a way to do it so that we can create an environment where businesses want to locate here without doing it on the backs of the individual taxpayer and the individual homeowner in a location? We can, but it takes a little more effort than what we're putting into it today.
Right.
Sorry, that's something that I really get passionate about, and one of the reasons I want to do away with the personal property tax on your primary residence in Indiana, because too many people are losing their home, whether they are losing it or having to sell it before they lose it, because they can't afford their property taxes anymore, even though we have a 1% cap.
Right. I hear you. So just we're already at an hour and a half.
So I don't mean to keep you all night.
No, you're fine. This has been fantastic. My last question to you. It seems like we're kind of caught up on the audience. So my last question, actually two really quick ones. The first one's really quick. What's the most influential book you've ever read that kind of reached you personally?
Well, I'm going to say, obviously, I would be completely inappropriate if I didn't first say the Bible.
Okay.
The second book that I read that I think informs a lot of my political positions is Aldous Huxley's Brave New World.
Okay.
You hear a lot of people talk about 1984, but if you've ever read Brave New World, a lot of the things that Aldous Huxley prognosticated in that novel, we see going on around us today.
Okay. All right. I have not read it. I know I'm horrible. I really do need to, because I've heard a lot of people that have said the same thing you did. You really, you need to read this book because it predicted a lot. Very, very similar to what we're going through now. I have read 1984. That was kind of my version of that. But my last question for you. I'm going to put your information back up there, so everyone, real quick, before I ask him the last question. If you want to learn more about Donald Rainwater and his campaign to run for governor, his information's on the screen. But for those of you who are listening who can't see, it's rainwater4indiana.com. That's rainwater4indiana.com. You can look them up on social media, Facebook, Rainwater, the number 4 Indiana, or on Twitter, Rainwater4IN. My last question for you. So you're gearing up, you're ready to run for governor against a very, very, I should say, an incumbent that's deeply entrenched, has a massive war chest. You're ready for this. Obviously, there are Democrats that are running, but they really, at least before this crisis, knew it was more of a stunt than anything else. Indiana's very, very red, but this COVID thing happens, the CV-19, whatever you're allowed to say now, this happens, and all of a sudden you're getting a massive boost. Other than that, what effect has the lockdown had on your campaign?
Well, I think that, first of all, obviously, I like to get out and knock on doors. Mm. You obviously can't do that right now.
Right.
As far as fundraising goes, it is much more difficult for anybody, but in particular a libertarian, who depends upon individual citizens' donations. Mm-hmm. It's hard to ask people to donate. It's difficult to look into a camera or to look into somebody's face or to talk on the phone and say, folks, if you want change, if you want a governor who understands the priority of putting individual citizens ahead of special interests and corporate interests, then I need your support. I need your support financially. I need your donation. If you can go to my website at rainwaterforindiana.com, click on that donate button. If you can give $10, $20, $25, whatever you can give, it will make a difference in our ability to use media, whether it be social media, digital media, print media, television, radio, to get name recognition and to get our message out to the citizens of Indiana that, first of all Hoosiers are essential, and every Hoosier business, regardless of size, provides the necessities of life for the people who depend upon it for their living. And that we want to make sure that our state government is keeping more money in your pocket, and we want you to be able to be secure in your life, liberty, property, and the pursuit of happiness as defined by you and not them. It's hard to do that during a pandemic.
Oh, yeah. I absolutely agree. I've experienced the same thing. And I really, there was a while, a period, at least before, the checks went out and people started being able to get unemployment. Many people are still, like you said, not receiving their unemployment benefits, which is ridiculous. Yeah, it's unconscionable. And I agree with you on that aspect, that our governor needs to be taking active steps to get people their benefits. Yeah. That's the only choice for some of these people right now.
Well, and here again, it's one thing to encourage people to be self-reliant. Mm-hmm. And I believe that there's a time and a place for that conversation.
Right.
But I believe that when we allow our government to create economic instability and destroy thousands upon thousands of Hoosier households economically, then the state government that screwed it up is responsible to take care of those people until those people can get back on their feet. Now, that's not a popular conservative viewpoint, but the reality is that the government jacked this up.
Oh yeah.
The government needs to, if any, we saw Holcomb say several times, well, you're going to have to sacrifice. No, sir. The citizens of Indiana should not have to sacrifice.
Yeah.
The morbidly obese state government needs to sacrifice.
Right. I do agree with you there. The government created this economic disaster, and I think that the government owes
through not trusting the citizens of the state of Indiana.
Right.
To me, that's the bottom line. They piled an economic crisis on top of a public health or medical crisis because they refused to trust Hoosiers to be citizens.
Yep, I agree. Well, thank you, Mr. Rainwater, for coming on. I greatly appreciate it. I actually got to run and get my son from work.
Understand? Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and with your viewers. And I hope that everybody who had a question was able to get a legitimate answer. And if not, go to my website at rainwaterforindiana.com, click the contact button, shoot me a contact email. I answer all of those personally.
All right. Thank you very much. I'm going to pull you from the stream. You're more than welcome to watch the little bit at the end where I'm just going to tell everybody goodbye. But again, thank you very much for coming on. I do greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. That was Donald Rainwater, who is running for Libertarian candidate for governor of Indiana. I mean, look, I put on a little disclaimer, neither one of us are endorsing the other or anything like that. But I mean, the guy makes sense in a lot of the things that he says. I'm a Republican. I'm not running as a Libertarian, but as many true Republicans, I think, would agree, the majority of the Libertarian platform does resonate with true conservative Republicans. So, I mean, it is what it is. I am not happy with our current governor for a variety of reasons, but only you can determine who you want to be the governor of Indiana, and you can do that November, right? November, we're going to pick our governor. There's no primary challengers or anything like that for Holcomb. There was talk of it. There's maybe this, maybe that. There's no Republican that's going to step up against the mighty political machine that is Governor Eric Holcomb. So, do you think it's time for a third party? Again, only you can decide that. I don't know. I'm one of those people that I'm not owned by the party. I want my party to do well. I believe very strongly in the Republican Party. I vote, almost exclusively Republican, but a lot resonates. We have a situation now where our economy has been gutted, absolutely gutted. We have people who are desperate, who are absolutely desperate. They have filed for unemployment. Our current governor isn't fixing that situation. He's on some lists that I'm not very happy about. Look, I'm running for Congress for the U.S. House of Representatives for Indiana District 1. He's running for governor on a different ticket, a third-party ticket. But again, if you're a true conservative Republican, I do believe that a lot of the Libertarian platform, a lot of the libertarian stances should resonate with you. I've been contacted by a number of conservatives who have said, what's your opinion on Holcomb? How do you think Holcomb's doing? Is there anybody else that's thinking of stepping up to run? There was some chatter, right, of other people that maybe, just maybe, might step up and challenge. Yeah, Dave says we have state dictators right now. I would agree with that, and not just in Indiana. Around the country, right? We have governors that seem to believe that they are the one and only arbiters of what's right for the people. And my understanding was that's what the assembly was for. That's what the vote was about. Look, right now, there are a lot of people that are struggling. So I don't look you in the eye and say, please give me money, right? I try not to do that because a lot of people don't have it. They don't have money right now. I have spent my money on these signs, right? Which I did want to say, I am absolutely blown away by the support that I have gotten, by the sheer number of people who have said, yeah, I want one of those. Come put it in my yard. I'm still working on getting everyone a sign for their yard. And I've got people from outside the district wanting signs, which is like, wow, that blows my mind. So thank you very much for everyone's support. Those of you who can afford to donate, who have extra money, you know it's going to go to a good cause. You know that I mean the things that I say. I get online with you every night at 7 p.m. and I tell you what I believe, what I stand for. If you have extra money, I greatly appreciate it. If you don't, please don't send me money if it's going to cause you to not be able to. So, yeah. For those of you who don't have money but still want to help me, sorry, wife was talking. Donate your voice. Donate your yard for a sign. I got a few left. They're going quick though. I will admit, on the one hand, I am like really, really excited because I'm like, wow, I didn't think they'd go that fast. On the other, it's like, man, I don't know if I want to have to go order more. But of course I do. Of course I do. I am all about it. This is really awesome. So thank you very much, everyone who has reached out to me and told me that you're with me 100% because I'm with you 100%. Thank you, Indiana. Thank you, Northwest Indiana. God bless you and God bless the USA.
If you'd like to support the show, please visit our Patreon at patreon.com/Dion's Daily Dose. This has been Dion's Daily Dose, hosted by Dion Bergeron. Executive producers, Sean Holgram and Michael Beebe. Copyright 2020. Dion's Daily Dose, all rights reserved.